How you doing, YouTube? Matt Massa Beer Reviews back with a beer I have not had in quite some time, and that is the Brewery's White Chocolate. Yeah, this is it. Ale. Okay, Wheatwine, I believe. Asian bourbon barrels with cacao nibs and vanilla beans. 14.8% because it's the Brewery, and that's what they do. And this be canned, this year. This is January 23rd, so it's less than 2 months old, or right around 2 months old. Let's see what else we have in the back here. A tasteful treatment of cacao nibs and hand-prepared vanilla beans award this golden waves of this Wheatwine style ale with subtle savoriness, reminiscent of white chocolate. Characters of coconut, honey, caramel, and vanilla intertwine seamlessly in this bourbon barrel-aged treat. Served at 55 degrees. It's probably spot on to that. And this is the 2020 edition. I had this a long time ago. I can't remember the last time I drank one of these. The first one I had of these. So, for you people out there that know the Brewery, chances are you do know that there's essentially two areas to the Brewery now. There's the Brewery, which is all their more malt forward stuff. Basically all their non-sour stuff. And then there's the terroir side. Terroir side, if you would. Because don't take this as gospel. This is what I know, knee-jerk. I didn't prepare for this, so this is what it's going to be. And this is why I'm telling this story. So the Brewery did a bunch of stuff. They did a bunch of malt forward beers. They do these kind of huge, gigantic beers. I mean, you can see here, it just looks like a Wheatwine. Not much of a head on it. Label's cool. We'll keep telling the story. Oh, I sprayed my pinky, so my shit hurts. Anyway, so they were making all the stuff under the same roof. So they were making a sour program, they were doing whatever. And then, a few years go by, and then they put out one of their big barrel-aged bottle beers, because it's almost all their bottle beer, or their big barrel-aged beers. Man, words are hard sometimes. Their big barrel-aged beers would come in bottles, but now they do them in cans. And they released this one. It turned out to be infected. It was kind of a big deal. And it was kind of one of the bigger... it was kind of like when Goose Island had their infection issues. It was like the big thing, the big one to have that issue before Goose Island had theirs. But obviously, when Goose Island had theirs, it was already ABM, Bev-Ohm, yada, yada, yada. For Brewery, it was kind of a big deal. And they had all these white chocolates that were sour. That's the one I had. That's the original first time I had a white chocolate. Was one of the soured ones. And it was sour, but it was still kind of good, to be perfectly honest with you. I want to say this was like 2014 or 15. And that was kind of impetus for them to kind of create their sour program. And when they created their sour program separate from the Brewery, they actually separated facilities. So that's why you have the Brewery. That's why, it's called Bruery instead of with a W, because Patrick Roux, and then you have terroir. It's because Patrick Roux off terroir and Roux, and then Brewery and Roux. Anyway, so yeah, I'm kind of excited to dive into this. Now, I know I've had this a couple times since then, but it's always been in like bottle shares and stuff like that. So I haven't given it kind of a fair shake by itself. It's always been mixed with a bunch of different beers, so it'll be cool to kind of dive into it. Anyway, I think I let it breathe long enough. Yeah, I'll give that excuse. I wanted to let it breathe. Just that rich kind of caramel color you come to expect from a Wheatwine. Not much of a head. Let's get a nose. I mean, it just smells like super caramel, date figgy, Wheatwine, old ale, barley wine craziness with an added emphasis. Man, the words are so hard. And here's the funny part. This is like the third beer I've had in like 5 days. And I haven't been doing reviews. Maybe that's why I've been talking to a camera. I'm in lockdown doing the whole COVID thing. Maybe that my brain is going to mush because I haven't left my house. Well, I haven't left the area. Man, it just smells like... just a nice aged old English old ale. It goes more old ale than Wheatwine for me, even though it does have Wheatwine vibes more than barley wine. Old ales tend to be a little bit more kind of distillate, like a malt, like a whiskey malty, than kind of richness. But there still has that richness to it, that little bit of sugar daddy in there. It's not necessarily all the way there yet. but you're getting that soft bourbon characteristic. You're getting that wood characteristic. You're getting a little bit of vanilla and I believe coconut off of the wood, but I think it's all being accentuated by the addition of that chocolate and the vanilla in the beer itself. We're just going to dive in. Cheers. That's a cool beer. That's a cool beer. I kind of want to hate on it. That's the weird part, because I want to start saying a bunch of things, which is it doesn't taste like an old brewery bottled beer. It's a little bit too thin. It's a little bit too sharp. It's a little bit too not rich, not big, not flabby, not huge. That's fucking white chocolate, though, to me. And that's the thing that I keep trying to remember, is it does remind me of white chocolate. And that's why I really do dig it. So, I know you're talking about, Chocolate Rain, all their bigger beers, Black Tuesday, all those big beers had this almost like density to them. This kind of rich thickness to them. They're always either like a barley wine or an old ale, but they have this kind of like sediment. I say that hesitantly just because I don't have the terminology at the top of my head to think about it, but it has this density. It's beyond viscosity in a beer. There's almost like a gruttiness to the beer, like a density to it, like a silt in the beer that gives it, burps, extra heft, and it just adds to the experience. Sure, you're already buying into an 18% beer. This is probably a little bit lower ABV than it knows, but there's always this impact both from taste and from mouthfeel. You're getting lighterness here. You're getting more delicate, sharper flavors. And typically when I taste those kind of things, when I get those kind of notes from food, from beer, I think of immaturity. I think of greenness. I think, it needs some more time. But then my brain starts to think about, okay, what's it like to eat white chocolate? Not that I've had it a ton of my life. I'm not a big fan of white chocolate. But every time I've had it, I've had the same exact thoughts go through my brain. Like, it kind of tastes like chocolate, but it's sharp, and it's not as vibrant, and it's not like, it just lacks that kind of sultry creaminess that milk chocolate brings to the table. That's kind of where this beer goes. So, at knee jerk, I was like, okay, starting to like preload all the shit I was going to talk on the beer. But I don't want to talk shit. I want to actually praise this beer for being what it is, because it's giving you that rich white chocolate experience as best as you could. I don't think they're trying to make this taste like white chocolate. That's not the angle I'm trying to play here. I'm trying to say they did something they wanted to kind of elicit the idea of eating white chocolate, and I think they've done that in a very fantastic fashion here. So let's break the beer down real quick before we kind of tie into it and finish up. So there's a soft, kind of rich, sweetened sugariness underneath it that comes off very much like a watered down bourbon. It's very much like watered down bourbon, watered down scotch, watered down spirit to me in a good way. It's not negative. I'm going to say a lot of negative words and I don't mean them to come off negative. So it's like a watered down bourbon. It's not like you're tasting just bourbon here. You're getting a lot of malt flavors, but I'm believing that they're trying to keep them light and nimble here on purpose, so that's the way it's coming off. There's a soft, rich white chocolate kind of floating around this whole thing that is super delicate and super light, but at the same time very vibrant. There's a soft oakiness to it, like a fresh first run vanilla oakiness to it. It's very much a delicate beer while at the same time being a very impactful beer. I think this is a really interesting, really well done beer. I don't think it's going to be the best beer anybody's ever had unless they really skew. And I keep wanting to think like French cuisine here, kind of like truffle-esque kind of dessert, like highbrow dessert on this one. That's kind of how it comes off to me. So if people are really into those kind of things, I think this is where this beer is really going to land for a lot of people. But man, it's super interesting. The bourbon comes off nice, not overpowering. None of it's very, very hot at 15%. That's very cool. It does have a nice mouthfeel to it while still staying delicate. That white chocolate is very present in it. The illusion of white chocolate, not necessarily white chocolate in and of itself, and just the vibe and the way the beer drinks, it just comes off. Dare I say like white chocolate? I mean, I know I'm using the word and the definition at this point, but I think it's fun. Yeah, this is probably by far and away the quickest turnaround I've ever had in a beer, mentally. To like tasting it, going, yeah, this is not, I know it's watery and I don't like it, and it is what it is, to when I finally started talking, going, you know what, this is really fucking cool. So, that in of itself, I'm going to give it fucking high marks. Anyway, let's talk about it. It's one of the better bourbon barrel aged, let's just go, one of the better wheat wines, because I haven't had that many as of late. Actually, maybe I should change that, because it would default into that. It's one of the better bourbon barrel aged beer I've had as of late. No, it's still in the conversation. It's one of the more interesting bourbon barrel aged beers I've had as of late. Yes. That is emphatic, yes, and I think that, again, I say it every time, I think that might be more important than the best a lot of times. Value and availability, I think this is kind of pricey. I actually bought this off a shelf, and I didn't even pay attention to what I was buying, because it was like, we're in the middle of doing the whole kind of coronavirus COVID thing, and I just go into the beer store and I grab a bunch of stuff, I slap it on the counter, I give them my credit card, and I leave as fast as possible, so I don't really look at price tags at this point. But I think I probably paid too much for this. I'm assuming this is like $10 for a can. Yeah, it is what it is. And leave you with, if you like what, will you like this? If you like white chocolate, if you like brewery beers, if you like bourbon barrel aged beers, if you like English barley wines, if you like old aged beers, if you like impactful heavyweight beers, if you like interesting beers, you'll like this. So there you go, another review in the books. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Down there if you want to talk about it. Massive Beers if you want to check me out doing the social media stuff. Beer Massive, want to check me out doing the whole podcasting thing. And hopefully you guys enjoyed the review. Hopefully you're enjoying a little brewery night right now, and hopefully see you next time. Cheers.